Hello and welcome to the video. This one is about this plane here. This is the Bonanza Park Flyer from Hobby King. Now this was released a couple of weeks ago and I've been flying it around here, so I think I've got enough time on the sticks to make a video to do a review. Now, as you probably spotted, this is a slightly cool looking plane with a V-tail, and I'm afraid that when it's got a V-tail I'm a bit of a goner. I do think V-tails look really cool and futuristic. Now this thing is really designed as a park flyer. It looks very impressive with all the decals and paint, and just over a meter wingspan. It is kind of perfect for park flying or flying in a large field. No landing gear on this one. This, from the box art, you can see here it's called the Throw and Show, and I think the idea here is very much that it's a hand launch model and that you belly land it onto the grass. Now for me, I don't have a problem with that at all. That's how I prefer to land most of my planes, to be honest, particularly ones like this. They tend to take an awful lot more abuse, and it means that it doesn't matter if the area that you're flying in doesn't have really smooth grass. Particularly scale models don't really like anything unless it's like a bowling green level of finish on the turf or a nice concrete runway. So in this video, let me quickly go through the specifications, show you how it comes in the box and how it goes together, give you a couple of tips and tricks and show you how this thing flies. So the specs for this is that, as I've said, it's a 950mm wingspan, so just under 37.5 inches. Length is 650mm, that's about 26.5 inches. Flying weight, including all electronics and battery, is round about 540-550 grams. Servos are pre-installed. There's a little 20 amp ESC in the nose with a 1300 kV motor spinning a 7x5 inch prop. Suggested battery in here is a 3S 1300. I ended up using a slightly larger battery just to get the center of gravity towards where it's said in the manual, but a little bit more about the COG in a minute. And the control surface throws are actually in the specifications on the website as opposed to in the manual, and you're aiming for about 8mm movement in each direction, so not absolutely tons and tons. If you put lots in, then it'll get very lively and a bit tricky to fly. You're going to need a receiver capable of V-tail mixing, and when we get to that bit in the video, I reference you to my V-tail setup video. Lots of radios these days allow you to set up V-tail mixing as a standard part of the model creation, so it's not as much of a black art as it used to be. It's very easy to build. It's made of EPO foam, so it goes together just like pretty much every other plane that you've probably ever seen from Hobby King and lots of other places too. The two wings need to be joined together, and there's a little connection plastic piece that goes at the front as well, and then that goes into the bottom of the body with a couple of screws, and over the top of that you'll need to glue the skid plate, which is there to protect the bottom of the plane when you land it to stop it getting torn up. The tail goes together in the two separate parts, so you have to pop those together and then into the recess at the back of the plane. Having built this one, if I had to do it again, I would actually glue both of the halves of the tail section together first and let that dry, and then I'd actually glue that entire piece into the recess that's actually at the back of the aircraft. Trying to do it all in one was a bit tricky. I ended up having to skewer mine with a couple of cocktail sticks to keep everything in place and to make sure the glue set up perfectly. Foam safe CA or something like that would be perfect for this. It would allow you to build this very, very quickly and give you a nice, strong, durable bond. The hardest thing in the entire build was fishing out the two servo leads for the two servos that control the V-tail at the back of the plane. The servo leads in mine had fallen through the little hole and were rattling around, and I had to stand there peering up through that little hole, desperately trying to get it out, and in the end made a little hook out of wire to eventually get them back out. They're not particularly long, they only come out by a couple of inches, so it's very easy if you're moving the plane around for those to fall back through the hole. So once you've got hold of them, tape them to the rear bulkhead of the canopy just to make sure that they don't disappear again on you. Some nice touches in here. There are ball style links for all the control surfaces, and all of the bits and pieces in the wings, as you've just seen, were already set up. So the actual setup itself was pretty fast. Let me very quickly talk about setting up V-tail on your radio. V-tail is just a 50-50 mix of both the elevator and the rudder into those two control surfaces. And I'll link you here to a video where I actually did a setup of setting up the V-tail. But modern radios and things like the FR Sky radios, as you can see here, when you actually start setting it up, you can actually pick V-tail out of the menu options, and that makes it really quick and easy to do. Quick little word on that central gravity. In the manual it says it's 70 millimeters from the front of where the wing sections meet the body. Well, that's what it appears to be in the manual. That felt a little bit too far forward for me. I know other pilots have had more success with it back at 90 millimeters. I found it that far back. It wanted to climb under power. So for me, I found about 80 millimeters, so just behind where it says in the Hobby King manual, for me seemed to work very well. And to get that, I actually ended up putting in a 2200 3S battery to get the center of gravity that far forward, but once it was there, it seemed to behave fine. There's absolutely tons and tons of room inside the model, so if you wanted to put stabilizers or you have a particularly large receiver in here, you don't really have to worry about that. A big part of the battery goes in a slot at the front of the model, so fitting things like 4S batteries is going to be almost impossible in here. It only talks about 3S in the manual, and I think if you wanted to go 4S, you'd probably have to drop the size of the prop, but the cutout for the battery inside the canopy was only just big enough to get this 2200 3S in anyway. So what's it like to fly? Well, it's very nice. There's no real drama at all. The only thing I would recommend is when you are launching this, don't be afraid of the throttle. Give it 80-90% throttle and give it a nice firm push. As you can see here, my very first attempt was not successful. This hasn't got absolutely oodles and oodles of power. It's designed as a park flyer, so the kind of throttle level that a lot of planes are very happy with this will not be enough to keep it in the air. So give it the majority of the throttle when you're throwing it up and it'll very quickly get away. Once it has some decent airspeed and that air's flowing over the wing, it's getting nice lots of lift, then it has a reasonable speed envelope. It'll fly relatively slowly, and also on full power it'll go quite quickly as well. This isn't a sport plane by any stretch of the imagination. For me, I had to use a little bit of trim. This particular flight that we're filming here was at that 90 millimeter central gravity position, so bit further back than it says in the manual, and for me I found that I was having to use an awful lot of elevator compensation because the nose wanted to pop up all the time, which is why I moved it forward a little bit, and that 80 millimeter position seemed to be an awful lot better for me. Do be careful of trying really low speeds in this. It will stall, and the stall can come on quite quickly. Make sure you're keeping some power on until the last few moments before you touch the grass, and then drop the throttle completely. I've not had any problems with the prop striking the ground, so it seems nicely designed that when it's coming in and skid landing, it's keeping the prop out the way of the ground. But if it did come in and there was a stone or something in the grass, then there's a chance that the prop would catch that and potentially break it as well. So in summary, what do I think? Well, this is a very nice, capable park flyer. It isn't built for out-and-out aerobatics or out-and-out speed, but it looks and flies great. It's not particularly expensive, it's very easy to build, and with the exception of just setting up those VTOL bits and pieces, and you can have it put together in about 15 minutes. So by the time that your 3S battery has finished charging, you probably have finished putting it together. So if you are looking for a little park flyer that looks like a proper little plane and will fly beautifully at scale speeds, then this is definitely worth a look. Thank you for taking the time to watch that video, and particularly for watching right to the very end. We try and release a video on Tuesday and Friday, and sometimes we'll release 1 or 2 extra ones in a week as well. All of the videos on the channel are organised into easy to use playlists, so do have a look in there, because if you're interested in a subject, we organise all the videos on that subject so you can find them easily all together in one place. If you like what we're doing, then please like and subscribe and tell others about the channel so they can come and join as well. We're available in all of the usual social media places, particularly in places like Instagram, Twitter, and we also share all of our 3D designs on Thingiverse.